Welcome to Learning Objective 7, Developing a Social Media Strategy. And in this learning objective, not only are you going to learn to develop a social media strategy, but you will also learn how to implement one. So you've already gone through the reading assignment, and now you've reached the scenario. So you were approached by your boss to develop a social media strategy plan that would improve your public image and be conducive for your organization. He or she is not very patient, so he or she would like to see improvements within 3 months. Furthermore, he or she advised you that he or she would like you to brief the plan to a group of stakeholders. So if you do not have an organization, no problem. You can create one. Although there are many people who fit the category of stakeholders, the group you will be presenting to will be administrators or individuals who you will need buy-in from in order to implement your strategy. So right here is the social media strategy plan that you will be using. And we did it in the form of a map, so we did not have to do a Word doc. And we're going to start right here in step 1, administer your SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is all about identifying your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you're going to, in this situation, you know that you may have some key subject matter experts in your corner who do quality of work, who would be good change agents to institute a strong set of core values and try to get the organization operating consistent with a true north, an established true north, especially in its social media activities. Next, you're going to identify your weaknesses. Are there any limiting factors, financial factors, organizational, or technology limitations? You're also going to want to know, are there any difficult time constraints? So in this scenario, you know your boss is a little impatient. They want to, you're a little bit behind the curve because you have some issues with public trust and you need to rebuild them. So time is of the essence in this case. So that's definitely a weakness that has to be dealt with. Next, you're going to identify if there's any vulnerabilities. Then you're going to move on to looking at your opportunities. Are there any market developments that you need to be aware of? Are there any product advancements that you need to be aware of? Any of those opportunities can eventually transition into strengths if you take advantage of them. Next, you're going to move on to threats. You're going to want to see what your competition is doing, or what are your barriers to change. Just about any implementation of a strategy plan is going to involve organizational change. You have to make sure that your organization is ready to change and that you have a fundamental change process in mind. So next we're going to go on to step 2, which is set your goals. And here, this is where you look at what you need to accomplish. And you already have your time frame, so you're going to create your goal statements. Your goal here is all about developing a brand, maybe raising brand awareness, but associating your brand with some newly instituted core values and identifying your true north and getting the public trust by letting the public see what your true north is all about. So given a time frame of 3 months, I would like to raise brand awareness. Your statement may be given a time frame of 3 months. I would love to improve my public image. And all this requires your organization's core values. Other goals could be to increase followers or visits or receive comments. That's pretty important. You gain collaboration with your stakeholders, and you can kind of see from their comments whether or not your strategy is working. Next, we're going to go on to step 3, and that's to generate your SMART objectives. In order to accomplish your goal, you're going to have to collectively accomplish objectives associated with that goal. So you want to make sure that your objectives are specific. What exactly do you want to accomplish? And it should correspond with the goal. You also want to make sure that your objectives are measurable. How will we illustrate and evaluate the extent to which our objectives have been met? Next, you want to make sure your objectives are attainable. They have to be accomplishable. Um, Next, you're going to want to make sure that your objectives are relevant. They have to fit into our key responsibilities, and in our case, definitely with the core values. Next, you want to make sure that your objectives are time-bound objectives, and in this case, you want to make sure that they can be attainable within 3 months. So moving on, before you implement, you have to plan your implementation. So this is the next step. You have to identify what social media channels will you want to work from. You already have your time increments before evaluation. 3 months is a reasonable time for you to have your data collected and start looking to see if your strategy is working. Next, you're going to want to identify what frequency are you using for each platform, whether it's going to be daily posting, weekly posting. All that's going to correspond to what tool you're using. You want to also identify any leads, any type of intelligence, business intelligence, or intelligence in your field that's out there. Anything cutting edge that you know of that you need to hone in on. Next, you want to make what do you want to convey in correlation to the goals, objectives, and core values. You have to make sure that these messages that you're putting out correspond with what your goal is. Then you're going to take all your information. You're going to generate your messages, your photos, and videos. And this is where you build your assets folder. You want to make sure everything is ready to go. It gives you a chance to lay everything out and make sure that everything's consistent with those core values. And then you're going to take everything you have and you're going to kind of implement it in a formative evaluation. And this is where you can administer mock implementation on practice platforms. And just about all the social media platforms and tools out there have security settings where whoever you select who can view them are the only people who can view them. So before they go out public, you want to make sure that everything looks right, that the word count is correct. You want to make sure that it conveys the message that you want. You want to make sure the grammar and structure are correct, and you want to make sure that everything's effective and consistent with those values. So next you're going to go into your implement step, and that's just where you deliver the content. You monitor, you respond to comments and feedback, and then you engage in your analytics, which you will set up through each social media platform or tool. So the next step is step 6, where you evaluate, and that's where you're going to collect your data. You're going to measure that data against your objectives. You also want to measure with your values rubric, and we will get into the values rubric here momentarily. And you will look at your return on investment. You have to look at what you put out and then what you gained as a result of. Will be a disparity between the two. If it's positive, you had a positive return on investment. In my example, you'll see where I can break down the return on investment in a percentage. Then you're going to want to document your lessons learned. That's very important for any future strategy plans you wish to execute. So we're going to look at the values rubric. And this values rubric was created with points associated with it to make sure that you can go up to 100% or 100 points. But your organization needs to establish what the minimum score is in order for that social media activity to be permissible. to be allowed to go out. So right here are the criteria. You want to make sure is the social media activity consistent with my organization's true north? It should be. Is the social media activity consistent with the core values? It should be. Is the social media activity consistent with the organization's mission and vision? You also want to make sure, because you not only do you have organizational mission and vision statements, but you should have them associated with your strategies. In this one here, it's all about building public trust and making sure that your organization is engaging in social media activity consistent with its true north. So that will correspond with any mission or vision statement that you come up with. Finally, is the social media activity consistent with the organization's guidance, regulations, and or public laws? This is serious because a no to any of the answers in this category basically is minus 100 points. You should not implement the activity. It could be violating a law and could get your organization in a lot of hot water. So finally, we're going to look at how you're going to incorporate your organization's true north. So in this scenario, you have to develop a true north for your organization. And your organization may already have one. And if it has one, it's totally okay to use it. Same thing with core values. If you don't know your organization's core values, feel free to give your organization some core values for this exercise. But if you see how the core values corresponds with your mission and vision, and then it corresponds with that guidance, your guiding principles, and they usually stem from imposed obligations like laws, organizational policies and procedures, and that cycles all the way back around, and then you identify your strong value that directs your organization in its true north. What is going to drive your organization? And here you want to drive certain behaviors that are associated with posting, social media activities, messages, and it all has to be consistent with your organization's true north. So, and if you notice, that's in the center, and it emanates out into each step. Each step has to be about the organization's values and the organization's true north. And that is our strategy map. So you're going to use these steps when you go ahead and create your own organization's social media strategy.